Hey guys, what's going on? Basin here, and I'm here to bring you another video here on the channel. Today is the day we're going to be going over my top 10 games of 2021. And just so you all know, all the games in this list are games that came out in North America this year, the region that I am from. And that is a very important fact for later on in the video, but we'll wait until we get there for that. And so this list is going to have all types of different games on it, so I hope you enjoy. So first of all, before I jump into the list, I wanted to talk about games that I didn't get to play this year. These were games that either looked interesting to me and I just never got around to them, or I do plan on hitting them at some point and they just got pushed back somewhere into the never-ending backlog queue that I have. The first game on this list is Hitman 3, and while personally I love the Hitman series and IO has done amazing things with the franchise, but this game was one that I picked up at the very beginning of the year, and then, life got in the way because, it just happens sometimes, and I just never got around back to it. And it's one of the games that I'm hoping to return to because it seemed like it was a good game and I just didn't have time, or I didn't want to put the effort into replaying that far that I got this year. Next up on the games that probably would be on my top 10 list is It Takes Two, published by EA. This game seems to be getting never-ending awards this year. It won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. There's so many outlets that really love this game. The unfortunate thing for me this year is that I really didn't have a co-op partner until later in the year that wanted to play games with me. But I know that if I would have had time to play it, but it was already too late this year in December, and I just didn't want to try and rush the game to put it onto my list. It would have felt, I don't know, ungenuine. So that's why it's not on the list. And finally, of the three games that probably would be on my list somewhere if I played them, was Inscription. And there's so many people that have told me about this game and that I would absolutely love it. I love deck building games. I love plot twists, and this game apparently has never-ending plot twists or never-ending deck building things, and I'm so excited to eventually play it eventually. But the only thing that has deterred me from playing it is the horror element. I don't do well with horror at all, and this game is a horror game and it's scary, but I definitely think it's one of the games that I will come back to in the future and really enjoy, but it's not going to happen in 2021. Now, we're not in the top 10 section, but like every list, I like to give honorable mentions sometimes. So there's two games that I played this year that I think deserve honorable mentions. They were great, and either I just didn't finish them or they just barely didn't make it onto my list. And the first one being Metroid Dread. And as a young kid, I remember finding Metroid Prime on the shelves of a Blockbuster and wondering what that game was all about. I never really ever picked it up, but I remember the cover and I remember everything about it. But this was the year that I finally got to play Metroid. And since it was released in 2021, I was expecting nothing really, but I was completely wrong. I loved this game, and it was action-packed, it was thrilling, it was difficult, it was worth every penny I spent on the game. It was such a fun ride the whole time I played it, and I really fell in love with the lore of Metroid, and even though Samus really didn't talk, it really made me feel for the character and understand what Samus was about in the few hours that I actually did play the game. And I'm excited to see what Metroid Prime 4 has to offer later on in the decade. And finally, I know it's been a lot, it's been almost 5 minutes, but the last game of the honorable mentions I want to give is Guardians of the Galaxy. I was not expecting this game. This game took me by such a surprise. I really love this game, and the only reason it's sitting here on the honorable mention list is because, well, I haven't finished the game yet. I'm very close to finishing it, but the reason why it's not sitting in my top 10 is because this game really needs to stick its landing in order to make it feel whole to me, and that's why it's not sitting on my list right now. And I think that if I did finish it, it probably would knock something off the list, but for right now, it's sticking in my honorable mentions. So, our top 10. Coming in at number 10 is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba The Hinokami Chronicles. I know I just butchered that, but it's the Demon Slayer game. And if you looked at me and you realized what games I play, you would have never picked me out as the fighting type person, that sort of thing. But I really love this game. I first watched the anime back in 2020 with a friend of mine, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I remember going to the theater and watching the Mugen Train arc and sobbing my eyes out. I really love this series. So when it came to the game, I was worried that it was going to disappoint, and fortunately, it didn't. I loved the fighting combat of this game. It felt very satisfying to actually beat your opponent and do it with a finishing move, no less. That was amazing. The online combat felt great. I mean, I'm not a fighter, but it didn't feel like there was much lag at all. And the story fights really were unique and interesting, and it felt like they mattered. I just feel like this game was really well done in all aspects, and it's a fighting game, so that's why it's sitting at number 10. So number 9, this is a little bit of a lead up to this one. So back in 2018, there was a game that was released called Judgement, and this game ended up becoming one of my favorite games of that year in 2019, as well as my top 20 games of all time. I really enjoyed that game, so it shouldn't be a shocker that the sequel, Lost Judgment, is coming in at number 9 this year. This game would absolutely be higher if there weren't so many other games that impressed me this year. I loved the continuation of the story of Yagami, and it felt like almost everything in the game was just improved overall. And I think the one thing that I really enjoyed is that the humor still stuck out as one of the highlights to me. In a game that deals with death and murder and all these sorts of different things, the humor just kind of added that little sprinkle on that made this game feel extra special. I really love both the Judgment and the Yakuza series for different reasons, but Lost Judgment delivered on what I was hoping. So coming in at number 8 this year is Death's Door. Holy crap. If you haven't seen my review of this game, you should go watch it. It's going to be up above me somewhere because I don't know exactly where, but I loved this game. It was an amazing game. This was such an indie gem of the year. It made me so happy to run around as like a little crow and roll and do all these sorts of different things. Everything just seemed to click. From the combat to the environment, everything just weaved itself together, and Acid Nerve did an amazing job. The only thing that I would add to this game is just more game, I guess. The characters were amazing. You had a guy with a pot on his head to this villain that like had motivation but was so good, and just everything just worked. And I think that that's why this game is one of my favorites of this year. So coming in at number 7, it might be a shock for some of you that it's this low, but if you looked at any other video on my channel, you knew that this was going to be on my list somewhere. So coming in at number 7 is Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And let me just say this, the reason why it is sitting so low on my list is because I've played these games before on the DS when they first came out, and obviously Ilka added new things like Ramanas Park and the Grand Underground, but the story remains mostly the same as when I played it all those years ago. And I'll also be the first one to admit that this game is flawed with duplication glitches and all these different things. It's crazy. But also, they lack the events of the Pokemon that I really wanted, like Darkrai or Shaman, but we can't blame them because they were they were released barely in the originals. But anyway, that doesn't mean that the 120 hours that I've put into this game was a waste. I thoroughly enjoy them, and I will keep playing them until Legends Arceus comes out, but I thoroughly enjoy them, and that is why Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is sitting at number 7. Now, if you told me back in 2020 that a Ratchet & Clank game would be in my top 10 list of 2021, I wouldn't believe you. Ratchet & Clank has always been a series that I've tried to over and over again to get into. It never really stuck with me. The humor just kind of didn't hit, and the gameplay just kind of felt lackluster in my opinion. That wasn't until I played number 6 this year, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. And let me tell you, Insomniac outdid themselves with this game. I think the game was amazing. The issue with the game, why it's sitting at number 6, is that the story was kind of meh. And usually that's an easy way not to put it on my list or not even get me to play it. But it was the introduction of a new character named Rivet. And Rivet really helped make this game feel different than all the other Ratchet & Clank games. Also, just the environments as well really helped sell the game to me, and the idea of pulling yourself through dimensional rifts into different parts of the world, and just it's amazing. I really enjoyed the game, and the level design was flat out ridiculous, like how good it was. And I think that this game is one of the games that is on my list because of the technical achievement that it had, not necessarily because of the story, and it really made me feel like I was playing a video game at the same time. It's really weird, but trust me, it is absolutely the Ratchet & Clank game I was looking for. So starting out our top 5 is a game that I was very torn about this year. Bandai Namco is either always a big hit or a miss for me. Their games just kind of go one way or the other. This year, however, it seems to have been their year. Coming in at number 5 is a game called Scarlet Nexus. Now, this game is very interesting. It has a lot of plot and a lot of different mechanics. And at first, I really hated this game. Like, honestly, I would go and rant to my friends about how much this game was super disappointing. Like, how I was hoping for a completely different game entirely. However, I started to accept the game for what it was. My perception of the game started to change. It wasn't trying to copy these other systems from games that I liked, like Persona with the system of friendship, or Platinum and their combat. It was just a Bandai Namco game. It was its own game. And from that point, I started to love the story. I started to love the characters more and more and more. And the world just started to feel more real. And this was the first time in a while that a game had really turned on me that much, from me hating it to me loving it. And I just really enjoy the game. Now, number 4 is a shocker to me, but not the biggest shocker to me. That's for later on. And I expected this game to be much lower on my list because of the expectations that I personally had for this game, as well as the community around it. But Halo Infinite delivered on everything that I wanted. 343 Studios outdid what I even thought was possible in a Halo game. Making an open world game with so many different things to do, it was ridiculous. I didn't think Master Chief could walk around this open world and kill grunts that are just hanging on top of cliffs. Like, it's insane. I obviously put a lot of hours into this game during this past month, but I loved every minute of it. It was hands down one of the games I had the most fun exploring this year. From saving the UNSC squad members to killing captains all over the map, everything just worked. Not to mention that the story helps expand the universe in a way that I never thought it could. It took it in directions that were unthinkable even 10 years ago. I think just overall, it was a great game with a great, interesting story that Halo fans love. So, top 3. Number 3 this year was absolutely a toss-up between 3 games. It was this game, it was Halo, and it was whatever number 2 was. And I had to give number 2 the edge because this game isn't fully technically released yet. But coming in at number 3 is Deltarune Chapter 2. And let me tell you all, I love Undertale. I played Undertale for the first time this past April with a group of friends, and let me tell you, I dove headfirst into that game, not knowing what was going to happen. And when I picked my head back up, I was deep in the fandom and creating theories about the game and what Deltarune was going to be, yada yada yada. And then we finally played Deltarune Chapter 1, and honestly, it just kind of felt a little lackluster compared to Undertale, and I wasn't really digging it. Then Chapter 2 was released, and I decided to pick it up and play it. Well, that was the plan. At least I never really played it, but the combat remains the same. I know the story because my girlfriend was the one who played it and I watched her play it. So the only thing that was added, as I said, was the story. And the story really started to pick up during this chapter. You met new characters, and it just was super exciting to see that this game was starting to find its footing, and what I'm excited to see Toby do in the future with this game. It seems like it's going to be a new version of Undertale, but in a different way than we've ever experienced it before. That is why Deltarune Chapter 2 is my number 3. Now, before I show you footage of the game, let me just preface it with this. I did not expect this game to be in my top 10 for this year at all. Heck, I had no idea that it was even going to be released this year. And you remember when I said like a game being released in North America this year, not all over, like not in its home country? Yeah, this is the game that this is about. So prepare yourselves. Coming in at number 2 is Hatsune Miku Colorful Stage. Now, I know almost all of you either groaned or sighed at this pick or clicked away, but trust me, it is an amazing game. I do have to say that this game wasn't one I looked and was like, I'm gonna download this game. My girlfriend was looking at games and that just released and found this game, and it was released in America at that point. So I downloaded it and I just played it. I loved rhythm games growing up. I was a Rock Band, Guitar Hero kid all the way through middle and high school, and I thought that was the best thing rhythm games could get ever. And then this game scratched that itch of rhythm games, but also it has a story that is amazing. I really love the way that they decided to take this story in the games with the different bands and all that sort of stuff. It really makes you feel things that I wasn't expecting a game like this to make me feel. So I guess it tempered expectations and changed my expectations, but it's just a really fun rhythm game with amazing songs and amazing story. And I just want to tell you, it's definitely worth a try. Coming in at number 1, if you thought, man, it's weird that I haven't referenced any other Bandai Namco games this year, even though I mentioned that there was probably going to be others on this list. Yeah, this is the other game that really took me by surprise and just was the best game in my opinion this year. Coming in at number 1 is Tales of Arise. And the Tales series has always been one that I've had my eyes on from afar. I never got the courage, or should I say time, to put into a Tales game. However, Tales of Arise was well worth me getting into it. I loved the combat style of this game, the way that you could switch between characters and like do different moves, and like you could change the moves and do all this sort of different things. It's the new style of JRPG, and I really am starting to enjoy this style of RPG where you can do your own thing, you can slash and hack at things, but at the same time it's just, I don't know, the story and the characters were just so amazing, and it made the world feel alive. Those tiny conversations you had between your different characters, or you pressed R1 and you just watched the cutscene play out, and not to mention that the story was amazing. It felt mature enough in a game that's like has like anime like girls in it, but like it is very mature for what I thought it was going to be. And everything in this game was done exceptionally well, from the graphics to the combat design to the level design to the story. And I don't think that there was a better game this year that exemplified any of this. So that's why Tales of Arise is at my number 1. So that about wraps it up here, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and our comment of the day today is, what was your favorite game of 2021? I would love to hear that down in the comments below, or if you have thoughts on my list, please feel free to share them with me either on Twitter or in the comments. That's fine, but I do want to know what you all enjoyed this year, because I'm always on the lookout for new games. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click like, and if you want to see more from me in the future, make sure you click that subscribe button down below. All right, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you back here for the next video.